I was detained near a store because, according to the police officer, I looked suspicious. I had a chocolate bar and my student ID in my hands. He did not ask who I was because he had already decided. Black means guilty. When they found out at school, it started. The looks, the jokes, the rumors. But I didn't break. I learned to take the blows. And when the system clenched its fist, I didn't fall. I made it look me in the eye. My name is Daniel. I was in 11th grade at a regular Ukrainian high school, regular if you're white, have a normal last name, and don't stand out. I'm dark-skinned, born in Kiev, speak Ukrainian fluently, and know Shevchenko by heart. But nobody cares. It all started in biology class. I was 4 minutes late. When I walked in, the teacher, Ms. Leshchenko, stopped mid-sentence. Oh, finally. Our guest from the jungle has decided to show up. The class burst into laughter. I clenched my jaw but said nothing. Where have you been? Chasing monkeys on the way. I was in the nurse's office, I replied. The nurse's office, she repeated emphatically. Of course. Always some reason, always some excuse. I'm surprised you haven't been expelled yet. This wasn't the first time this had happened. Last week, she joked that my skin color was a good camouflage for chemistry because I was barely visible against the blackboard. But this time, I wanted to explode. After class, I approached her. Ms. Leshchenko, I'm sorry, but your words are racist. She raised her eyebrows. Are you offended? I'm like a mother to you. I said it kindly. And you immediately say racism. You're in Europe. Boy, there's order here. I turned around and left because I knew it was pointless to continue. During the break, Vlad, one of the guys who had laughed the hardest, caught up with me. Dan, man, don't worry about it. It was just a joke. If I joke about your mom, you won't worry about it either? Hey, don't overreact. Just don't act like you're offended. You're normal, not like those guys. I didn't listen. Those. That word, coming from a white person's mouth, said with a hint of contempt, always sounded like a death sentence. By the end of the day, I couldn't concentrate anymore. People were looking at me differently, some with pity, some with curiosity, and some with outright contempt. After the last class, I went to the vice principal's office. Vasil Stepanovic, I want to file a complaint against Ms. Leshchenko. He didn't even look up from his papers. What for? She humiliates me in class, in front of everyone, because of how I look. And you call that discrimination? You're just thin-skinned. Teachers can joke around. You're not in America. Anyway, don't provoke her, and everything will be fine. So it's my fault? I didn't say anything like that, he sighed. But, Daniel, you have to understand, you have a different background, and you need to try harder not to cause conflict. We have a peaceful school here, and we don't want any problems. It was clear. We don't want any problems, meaning it's better to keep quiet. I left the office as if I had been interrogated. There was only one place left where I could breathe freely, my gym. I went boxing 3 times a week. My coach, Uncle Levko, didn't ask where I was from. He just said, everyone is equal in the ring. Show me what you can do. That evening, I hit the punching bag longer than usual. Leshchenko's words, the deputy principal's words, the government's words echoed in my head. I didn't scream or cry. I just hit. Not because I wanted to prove something to anyone, but because it was my way of not losing myself. When I got home, I didn't tell my mom. She works as a nurse and has been raising us on her own since my dad died. She's under constant stress. I just sat down at the table and did my homework. But a decision was already forming in my head. If the system won't listen to me, I'll make it listen. The next day, things got even worse. I walked into the classroom and immediately sensed that something was wrong. Someone had drawn a banana peel on my desk and written "Back to Africa." The style resembled Marx, the same group as Vlad. I sat down silently. Those who didn't usually laugh started laughing. They probably felt they could, that no one would help me. I calmly raised my hand. Ms. Leshchenko, I want to change desks. Why? There's an offensive inscription. She came over, read it, and shrugged. You can erase it. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill. But it's racism. You're starting again. Maybe you should focus on the lesson instead of your rights. This time, something clicked inside me. Not a scream, not anger, coldness. The kind that makes you breathe slowly so you don't explode. I left the classroom. I just got up and left. I was called to the principal's office. You have no right to leave class without permission. And Ms. Leschenko has the right to humiliate me? That's not up for discussion. His voice became sharp. If you can't adapt to our standards, maybe this school isn't for you. That was direct. Not for you, translated to you're not like us. I wanted to say something, but the principal had already opened the door, hinting that the conversation was over. In the hallway, I ran into Anya, a girl from my class. She never laughed at me. On the contrary, she sometimes helped me with my homework. She looked at me guiltily. Daniel, I saw that note. It's disgusting. I'm ashamed. Then say something. Say something in class. I'm afraid. They'll start on me too. Do you think I'm not afraid? She was silent. I left. When you're alone, the system is strong. But when even those who see the truth remain silent, it becomes all-powerful. That same day, after class, I saw the vice principal talking to Vladimir, the gym teacher. They glanced at me, laughed, and the vice principal said something like, "Let him run around in circles for a while. Let him blow off some steam." It wasn't laughter, it was approval of bullying. In gym class, they gave me a ball and told me to play against 3 older students. One was Slavko, the district basketball champion. The other 2 were his friends. I realized it was a setup. 1 against 3, said the teacher. Let's see what kind of warrior you are. The game began and immediately turned into a fight. They pushed me, hit me with their elbows, and laughed. I stood my ground until the end. I didn't fall. But at some point, Slavko deliberately pushed me in the back. I fell. It hurt. But the teacher's silence hurt even more. "It's your own fault," he said. "There's no need to be so cocky." I got up. Without a word. In the locker room, my hands were shaking. Not from fear, from anger that I had no right to let out. Because as soon as I lost it, they would say, "See, we told you so." At home, I couldn't take it anymore. "Mom, if I say something loud, will they kick me out?" Maybe they will. But if you don't say anything, you've already lost. But everyone is silent. Those who see and those who know. They just keep quiet. Because they haven't paid for their silence yet. But you're already paying. Every day. I was silent. My mother came over and hugged me. "Son, you have a right to be here. And you have a right to be heard." For the first time that day, I felt that I was not alone. The following Monday, I was called to the principal's office. Again. But this time the door was open, and my coach, Uncle Levko, was already sitting inside. I hadn't called him. So someone had spoken up after all. He sat upright, hands on his knees, calm but with a piercing gaze. The principal seemed a little intimidated. "We are discussing the behavior of your ward," he began cautiously. "There have been complaints at school about his excessive emotionality, his refusal to obey the rules." "Rules?" Levko interrupted him. "You call humiliation because of skin color jokes? Do you think a child should remain silent when teachers bully him?" "We have not confirmed any cases of bullying," the principal replied dryly. "Because you don't want to see them," said Levko without raising his voice. "But I see something else. I see a boy who comes home after school and hits a punching bag as if his life depends on it. I ask him what happened, and he doesn't say a word. And that silence is worse than any scream. Because he's used to not being believed." The principal fell silent. For a few seconds, the office was quiet. "All right," he said finally. "If you have specific complaints, you can write a statement. But be careful. Such accusations can ruin the school's reputation. And not only the school's." "Did you just threaten me?" Levko narrowed his eyes. "You just admitted that you're protecting the institution, not the children." "Very interesting. I'll think about who else might be interested, maybe journalists or the city council." "Don't go too far, Mr. Levko. And you stop hiding behind your position." The coach's voice became firm. "You're not afraid of the truth, you're afraid of the consequences. But if anyone insults Daniel one more time, we'll go public with this. I know how to do it. And believe me, a story about a school that ignores racism won't look good on any website." The principal lowered his gaze. He understood. This was not a battle that could be won by order. After the meeting, we left the office. I followed Levko silently. "Why did you come?" I finally asked. "Because enough is enough, Dan. You keep everything inside. But you can't do it alone. Now listen, silence is not strength. Strength is speaking when your knees are shaking. And I know you have that strength. But they won't listen. Then make them listen. That same evening, Levko helped me write an official statement about discrimination. We gathered evidence, recorded the dates of the incidents, and even printed out screenshots from the school chat where I was openly insulted. I didn't think it would help, but Levko said, "Their weapon is silence. Ours is documents and words." A day later, I was called in again, this time to a teacher's meeting. The principal, the vice principal, my homeroom teacher, Ms. Leshchenko, and I were sitting there. In the middle was a letter with our accusations. "Daniel," the principal began, "you have the opportunity to explain what is bothering you. But remember, this is serious. Your words have consequences." I took a deep breath. For the first time, I wasn't just defending myself, I was attacking. I am being humiliated. Systematically. Publicly. I kept quiet because I hoped someone would intervene. But no one did. Everyone remained silent. And I got tired. I listed everything. Without hysterics. Without shouting. Calmly. And therefore even more accurately. Some members of the commission were taken aback. Ms. Leshchenko sat red-faced, but did not interrupt. "Do you want the truth?" I asked. "Here it is. I am taught to keep quiet, because otherwise I am aggressive. Because I don't fit in. But I am not going to keep quiet anymore." There was silence. Heavy, unpleasant silence. The kind of silence that means something has to change. After the teachers' meeting, no one bothered me anymore, at least not openly. But the most important thing was yet to come. The next day, the administration announced that, at the request of parents and the public, a public meeting of the school council would be held. I, Coach Levko, and other participants in the conflict were to be heard. For the first time, the school couldn't just sweep the issue under the rug. When I arrived in the morning, the auditorium was already full of people. Parents, teachers, journalists from the local newspaper. Someone had posted about the situation online, and it had gone viral. Levko was sitting in the front row. Next to him was his mother, without her hospital gown for the first time in a long time. Her hands were shaking, but her eyes were steady. She was ready. The principal began his speech dryly and formally. Then the deputy principal spoke. They talked about misunderstandings, unfortunate remarks, and the emotionality of young people. The same old story. "We recognize that certain situations could have been perceived ambiguously," said the principal. "But school is a place for learning, not political conflicts." Then Levko stood up. "You're talking about politics, but I'm talking about dignity. A boy who is afraid to go to class every day is not politics. It's a disgrace." Applause. Hesitant, but sincere. When I was called, I went up to the microphone and looked around the room. My whole body was tense, my palms were sweaty. But I remembered Levko's words. "Strength is speaking when your knees are shaking." I am Ukrainian. Not a guest, not an African, not an exotic. I was born here. But every day I am reminded that I am a stranger. Not because of my behavior, because of the color of my skin. Silence. Someone coughed. It wasn't just the students who bullied me. I was humiliated by teachers. One of them told me that my face was not suitable for the whiteboard. "Do you think that's normal?" I looked at the principal. I was advised to keep quiet, so as not to rock the boat. But silence is complicity. You kept quiet. And your jokes became permission to continue the bullying. "And what do you want?" Ms. Leshchenko asked sharply. "For people to feel sorry for you? To recognize you as special?" I looked straight at her. "No, I want to be seen. As a person. Without discounts. Without labels." The room buzzed. A woman sitting to the side raised her hand. "My son is in this class. He told me about these jokes. I'm ashamed that I kept quiet. But now I support Daniel." Another mother stood up. "Me too. My son also made jokes. But he has to learn that this is not acceptable. And if the school doesn't explain it to him, then who will?" It was a breakthrough. A wave that could no longer be stopped. The administration couldn't hold out. The following week, a representative of the city's education department visited the school. Disciplinary proceedings were opened against Ms. Leshchenko, and the principal was reprimanded for covering up discrimination. But the most important thing was not the punishment. The following Monday, I walked up to the blackboard not as an outcast, but as someone who had forced the system to acknowledge its blindness. And in the eyes of my classmates, there was no longer that tense contempt. Some looked at me with respect. Some looked at me with surprise. But there was no more bullying. There was no silence. In history class, the new teacher, Mr. Bogdan, asked me a question. Daniel, you were often silent in class, but your story is important. Tell us what the real struggle for dignity looked like in your life. And I told him. 3 weeks have passed since that day. The school has changed, not radically, but noticeably. Things that had previously been hushed up were now being discussed. The class teacher initiated a roundtable discussion about equality, about dignity, about the silence that destroys. Parents were invited. I sat in the hall, looked at them, and remembered how I used to sit quietly in the back row, convinced that no one needed my voice. During the break, Vlad came up to me. Yes, the same Vlad. Dude, he began, lowering his voice. I went too far. We went too far. I know. Back then, in biology class, in the chat, and in gym class, I really didn't understand what it all meant. But now, I'm ashamed. I didn't answer right away. I looked at him for a long time. It's not up to me to decide how you fix it. But if you understand, that's good. Real strength isn't about humiliating others. It's about admitting you were wrong. He nodded. For the first time, without a smile, without irony. Straightforward, sincere. That same week, I was invited to speak at a youth forum at the city council. I hesitated, but Levko said, if they hear you, speak up, because there are those who are not heard at all. And I went on stage in front of a full hall of school children, teachers, and officials. I stood there with a microphone in my hands and remembered that not long ago I was afraid to say a word even in class. And now I had the opportunity to speak to hundreds of people. And every word I said mattered. I was humiliated for who I am. I was forced to remain silent because my truth was inconvenient. But silence does not save. It destroys. Not immediately, gradually. Inside. Today I am not standing here as a hero. I am just a guy who got tired of being afraid. And I said, enough. But you know what was the hardest part? Not proving that I was right. The hardest part was staying true to myself when the whole world was pushing me to break. I don't want anyone else in this country to think that they don't have a right to dignity, that their voice doesn't matter. Everyone has a right to exist and to be heard. The applause was loud, but I didn't do it for the applause. After the forum, a woman from the city council approached me. She said they were launching a project called School of Equality, training courses for teachers, discussions with students about discrimination, psychological support. We want you to be an ambassador. Who better to tell people what it's like to stand up for yourself? I agreed, because it wasn't about me anymore. It was about dozens of Danis in different schools, cities, and countries. About those who hadn't dared to speak up yet. At school, we created a trust group, students who could turn to each other without fear. People came to us, and that was already a small victory. One evening, my mother sat down next to me while I was writing an essay for a new speech. I always knew you were strong, she said. But now I see that you are stronger than I thought. It's not about strength, Mom. It's about choice. Either you stay silent and let them win, or you speak up and you will be heard. She took my hand. You made the right choice. Today, I'm back on stage. Hundreds of eyes are on me. Some of them may be silent about their pain right now, but I speak for them. When they force you to be silent, speak even louder. When they force you to disappear, become visible. Your voice has power. Use it, because change is not something distant. It's not laws or decrees. Change begins when one person refuses to be silent. Today, that person is me. Tomorrow, it could be you.